o'clock or 7:06. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and here's the little flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 The next item is the the announcement of the approval of the minutes from the April 22nd meeting. The motion.
I move approval.
Have a second?
Second.
Any comments on that? All in favor? You say aye.
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 Next item on the agenda is the public hearing for May 13th at 6 o'clock. And I think Ken or staff want to talk about that public hearing for a minute.
Yep. So we're going to use the same webinar format that we're using tonight. We're going to live stream via YouTube, and we're going to ask that all public watch YouTube to participate and only call in if they need to ask a question or interact with the board. My suggestion is that since it'll show me phone numbers, we just say, we're now acknowledging this phone number and let them ask their question after I unmute them and conduct it that way.
Once they are off mute, we should have them state their name and their address because it is a public hearing. And we would also want to make sure that they should be by rights eligible to vote on the referendum because it is the public hearing on the budget.
Okay.
We'll have instructions out before the meeting and how people are to participate and the issues that we have. We've also received a number of comments through the questionnaire, and we'll try to answer those as well at that public hearing and try to go through the general list of all the questions and answer anything that is on there. There's several that are the same type of question, the same type of comment, and we can answer those as well that evening. And there's also some that have asked the individual requests to be corresponded with, so I will correspond with them between now and May 13th. Is there any other comments on that public hearing? Again, the meeting after that for the vote on the budget is the May 27th. Again, that would be the night for the vote.
Bob, I think you had mentioned for the public hearing that there might be a few board members who might want to address some of the questions that were brought up specifically, like, the money that's being expended on playground equipment, in particular at John Lyman School, the field house, per pupil expenditures. So maybe we can just get something out to the board and see if there are people who are willing to just address some of those things so that the board is really participating in that.
Yeah, it would be good if Bob and Missy or Missy would answer the questions related to the playgrounds and things like that who've been working on it.
All right, I'll take a look at the questions and Missy, if you do as well, and maybe we can divide and conquer so that it sounds more unified coming from two of us instead of one.
All right, that'd be great. And there's some other questions that we'll go over before the public hearing and see if we can get several board members to answer them rather than just Kathy or Kim or I. So it would be great.
Does it make sense? I'm not even sure if we're allowed to do this, but from the survey, from kind of the comments / questions that came back, could we just like put them up, like just like in a slide and have them answered so they're up there for the public hearing? Because I feel like those are most likely going to be people's comments. I was actually surprised by how many comments about playground equipment. People probably don't even realize that we don't have a playground at Lyman right now.
Right.
So I thought like maybe if we just address them, like we can have it out there. I don't know.
Yeah, we can work on that. All right, if there's no other questions on that, Kath, you want to give us the update on the school closure?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see all of you. Lots of updates in a 2-week period. We had our call with the health director on Tuesday morning, and I would say probably the most important message that came out of our meeting with him was that just the encouragement to continue to exercise extreme caution and follow all safety and social distancing guidelines. I asked specifically again on how soon we would be able to get information on guidelines for the reopening of schools. And he was pretty clear in saying that at the state level, the priority right now are nail salons and restaurants. And this afternoon actually was the governor's conference call. And we were told on that call that on Friday of this week, there'll be guidelines for small offices. So I think that I'll be very interested to see what that looks like. So those were the updates we had there. Our phone call this afternoon with the Commissioner of Education. Again, one of the very hot topics is graduation. And I will say, just from talking to superintendents from around the state, people have lots of plans, some of which I hear and think, oh my gosh, how are you going to do that? It seems to be outside of the guidelines that we've been told to follow. So they've set up a call for us. We don't have the date yet, so that we can have very specific guidelines if we are to have an in-person graduation of any type. Immediately upon, and the commissioner had planned to make the announcement at 3 o'clock yesterday, so was a little surprised when he heard that at the governor's press conference, the information on closing school for the rest of the year was shared. So anyway, after that information was shared, there was obviously lots and lots of questions and many requests to dial back the last day of school. Our call with the commissioner today was finish strong. We want you to follow that last day of school schedule that you have. I think within the next week, we may be getting a little bit of direction on potentially some district level decision-making around that. And I'll talk further about some thoughts that I have about that. There further information on Connecticut's submission of for the CARES Act funding that went in on Monday. And as some of you who were on earlier, we just happened to get some information. This really doesn't have anything to do with COVID, but the state has changed the formula by which the per pupil expenditure or net current expenditure will be determined, so that our ECA excess cost funding is a little bit more predictable from year to year. Press conference yesterday, conference call tonight, where the information was shared about the school closure. We were told we weren't going to be getting. We had a call with the commissioner at 3. Governor's call was at 5. The call with the commissioner at 3. We were told that we would be getting information on summer school by May 15th, and then the governor said we could probably start summer school in late July. So we'll wait to see and get further information on that and the potential for summer camps to open at the end of next month. And as I said, I'm interested to see their best practice document for small office spaces that will be coming out in 2 days. We had our District 13 Planning and Response Team meeting on Tuesday, and the topics that were covered were just the beginning phases of our recovery and reopening planning. Both towns will be participating in that, so we'll continue our collaboration with them there. We did talk a little bit about some of our school calendar considerations, including looking at the rest of the year with potentially some built-in time for teachers to begin planning for next year. In particular, I'd like teachers to be able to be looking at, for example, Mr. Bradnini teaching an Algebra 2 class. Where are his students? What kind of skill deficits is he seeing? What might these students need next year as they go into their next level of math or reading or science? I think it'll be just critically important for teachers to have the time to really do an assessment in whatever way they can of student skills, so that they're planning for instruction and curriculum in the year to come, whether it is whether it continues to be at home distance learning or in person. Again, we still have left June 16th on the calendar, basically for the kids' sake, with an alternate date of July 31st for graduation. Prom is still on the calendar for the 11th. The parent groups in town are getting together signs and banners for seniors that will be going up. Ken gave us a little update on the antivirus considerations that they need to be looking at. We will begin in earnest our room moves. Sue Goodrow and I will be meeting tomorrow to just rough out a schedule, so that as we're preparing for our grade configuration, we can begin working on that right now, and our summer cleaning schedule can get underway. We are talking about what a return to work protocol will be for any of our employees who might be out sick or diagnosed with the COVID virus. Continuing to focus on well-being as a primary focus for everyone. Ed, Laura, and I met with our Connecticut wellness reps this morning to continue our wellness initiatives with them. Our head nurse, Pam Bransford, talked about the considerations upon return, whether we'll be taking people's temperature, each person's temperature as they come into the building, what types of PPE we may need, and how we might order those. Our meal distribution, I believe Kim mentioned at the last meeting that all students are eligible for free lunch, and we saw a doubling in our meal distribution over the course of the last week. This week happens to be Teacher and Staff Appreciation. So Bob noted on behalf of the board your appreciation for the work that all staff are doing in our district. Both Ed and Laura gave a little bit of an update, and Kim let us know that our bus drivers were back to work on Cinco de Mayo. The priority areas that have been shared with us from the State Department of Education, and they're talking about a focus on this for the next 12 months in the memo that we received yesterday or 2 days ago. So they're first of all looking at equitable access to technology. So I think that their long-term lookout is the potential for an extended period of time with distance learning. They'll be sending out a survey to all districts, and depending on what they find, there will be some financing and sharing of various devices for schools in need. access to high quality curriculum involves the state making a commitment to actually provide a curriculum for any district who may need it, with a focus on EL, English language learners, high risk learners, and students with special needs. Another focus on educational recovery and the reopening of schools, where they are committing to sharing funding and delivering funding. They're hoping for more funding than through the CARES Act to support schools, and obviously social and emotional well-being for all students. We also have our own security and safety plan, a district-wide security and safety plan that's based on a guideline that we've been given by the state. So in the development of our strategic plan for reopening and recovery, we will use the State Department's guidelines, and we'll also look at our own plan that follows the recovery and continuity of operation, and that has a focus of academic, physical, fiscal, and psychological recovery. We have our general goals for District 13 are focused on well-being and safety, including mental health, operations, teaching, and learning. Our administrative team has begun to look at students and teachers with, and this is purely an example of what we've done, because we've met as a team, and then middle school and high school met together, elementary and memorial met together, and then in each of these areas, they've identified goals and associated outcomes to address the areas of reunification, well-being, mental health, and learning. We've also begun this process for staff as well. I've begun to, in the absence of anything from the state at this point, as many of you know, my husband Dave is the Director of Environmental Health and Safety at Western Connecticut State University, where they've begun in earnest the process of preparing a plan for the building. So I've just kind of looked at some of the documents that they're using and the resource materials, and I would imagine that many of these plans focus on these general outlines. Great resources, very interesting, and will involve the coordination of a focus on all of these areas, with an attention to detail at whatever time this happens for us. As we've been working through this, other considerations obviously include what will our schedule look like, and I mean the schedule of when will we come back to school. Will we need to do things like having a transitioning schedule, some students coming in the morning, some in the afternoon, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. These are all things that have been talked about. When we look at staffing, when we look at staffing, what we're doing first is looking at what are the needs of the district and how best can we address these. District-wide, in our safety and security plan, they talk about the assignment of a coordinator of recovery. I have begun to talk to Kim about whether or not we might want to modify our HR posting, find a 0.5 from another area to make that a full-time position, and have that person share some of the oversight of this recovery effort. We're also looking at the needs that our students will potentially have, and what additional staff we may need, what repurposing of staff that are currently in existence, as well as some of the new staffing that we've put into place for next year. Resources is just, massive resources from technology to manipulatives at home if kids are at home learning, and other resources in school. I was in touch with the director of Dolphin Days as I've thought about the fact that we may have students who are going back to, who may have parents who are going back to work. If summer camps aren't getting started, whether or not there would be some capability for our students to have some summer camp opportunities through Dolphin Days, or if we don't go back to school in the fall, or if we're back and out again, I'd like to really explore getting that childcare started and housed in our buildings if we can. So we have planned to meet once a week beginning next week. Obviously, legal considerations, the design of summer school, which we have our draft of summer school planning ready, general hygiene and personal safety, how we're going to use our space, and the potential of a hybrid work design that may include virtual and in-person design. And then, of course, any changes that we might need to have in district policies. Before I move on to just an update on our distance learning, does anybody have any questions on just some of that forward planning that we're doing right now, or just any things that you'd like to suggest that that we're sure we're keeping in mind?
Kath, is there any plans for if the graduation can't be in person? Were there any like plan Bs?
Yes, actually, you mean like a virtual graduation?
Yeah, you see like a bunch of other districts are kind of considering, or even other states. I didn't know if we had anything in the works yet as far as if we can't have it in-person ceremony.
Yeah, actually, it's underway, and our athletic director, Todd Petronio, is in charge of it. And it's actually what we decided early on was whether or not we could have an in-person graduation or not. The kids were going to have a virtual one as well.
Okay.
That's and super excited about what they're doing so far. Just wanted to give you a little at-home distance learning update, just because I've had, a couple of phone calls, people reaching out to me, and I did a thought exchange question to parents, which hasn't closed yet, but I did want to give you a little bit of an update on that. Many of you attended the Student Achievement Committee meeting with Corey, and I think she gave a really comprehensive update, as well as the survey results that she had received from both teachers and parents. She just got the results of survey results from students that we'll go over as an administrative team on Friday. The question that I had asked to parents was kind of, what's working well and what challenges are you facing? And so the way that thought exchange works, it kind of sorts the responses into those that are most frequently rated at a high level. So I was, really touched by the fact that the highest rated response from parents was the connection with family and loved ones is most important. But most of the feedback, I was tossing this out as a very general question. But I think very generally what people are dealing with is teaching their children at home. And so you can see what the top thoughts were that we were given. And definitely good feedback for us to look at what our current structure is, and if it makes sense to make any adjustments whatsoever. In terms of the live learning, that's a conversation that I have had with a few people, some parents, who basically are saying our kids just really want to see their teachers. They want to see other people from their building, and they want it to be a live and real-time connection. Our elementary teachers this week are just finishing up their training with Google Hangout. Some of the teachers in elementary school decided to pilot it on their own, so they've been they've been doing that already. Our expectation for our elementary school at this point is that they'll have live classroom meetings 2 times a week. In grades 5 and 6, they have a homework hangout an hour each day. We have an expectation of recorded instructional videos. And then, of course, for our students with special needs at the elementary level and other middle and high school, one-on-one live instruction. I also asked Corey to reach out to just do a little bit of surveying from districts in our area as well as districts around the state, just for us to do a little bit of a compare and contrast, get some ideas, see where we are. And in the 9 schools that she gathered information on, what we're seeing is that we're right within the kind of the framework and design of the other schools that we've gathered information on in terms of the synchronous and asynchronous learning at this time. And this slide just gives you a little bit of just summarize what I've been blathering on about. I know we wanted to have a little bit more conversation on distance learning. And, what I want to assure you is that the design that we implemented was really well thought out, and with the primary concern about equity and access, and not necessarily thinking that this was exactly what it would look like forever in District 13, but that it was a responsible, deliberate way to get started and then make adjustments as we moved forward. So that's my update of in the past 2 weeks, what's going on.
For the graduation, more that Brian is working with students as well, and so there's a committee that meets regularly, to deal with getting some students involved. I was considering holding a wellness committee meeting sometime in May, just to, get make sure everybody is on the same page as we are. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, I actually wrote myself a note that maybe we should have a meeting soon too. So I'll get in touch with you.
All right.
I really appreciate that, because when we talk about the fact that we have, and I mean, this isn't just District 13, when we talk about recovery, that psychological recovery and social emotional learning and well-being, that is the priority everywhere. I have to tell you, I feel very good about where we are and what we have set up, and already the plans about how we'll support teachers and students when they come in. But I would love to have the board's support with a well-being committee meeting.
Okay, I'll be in touch with you guys.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Kathy. I know that participating in these meetings is a tremendous amount of work that the teachers are going through, and I know I mentioned that we appreciate it, and I think the board has, some of you have written letters to the teachers to congratulate them, on their work and how much they're appreciated. And I think knowing that they're missed so much is probably one of the best ways to show how much they're being appreciated. So,
Bob, I mentioned this at the planning and response team meeting. This is right around the time where, when we left school on March 13th, I was thinking around that 6 or 7 week period is when we were going to hit a point where we'd potentially have a little bit of a fracture or a hairline crack, where we'd start the stress, just the enormity of the stress. And what I want to make sure of is that we stick together as a community and as a team. And I know that there are parents who are feeling like distance learning and the way that it's structured right now, it isn't working for my family. While we have other parents who are saying, you know what, this is great. It's just right. Please don't stop. Don't have a vacation. Don't take a day off. We need the structure. My point is we need the feedback. It's good for us, and we're really deliberate about the decisions that we're making here. And I don't want it to create this a situation where we've got kind of parents versus school because there's a conflict. I want to use that feedback because that's what it's about. We're a learning organization, so the feedback is helpful, and we are striving to do the very best we can for all students. And we know kids want to see their teachers. So that's all I've got, Bob.
Thank you. Any other comments for Kath on the update? If not, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the nurses contract. We actually finished negotiating that before early in March, and it's kind of been sitting still for the last several weeks. And Kim, want to just summarize what the contract is?
We had a very cordial negotiation session with the nurses. Our last meeting was actually done on Google Hangout. And we got to be able to, work out the, we'd come back, I think, 3 or 4 times, but it was a very smooth negotiation. The nurses union ratified it, so it's for the board vote for this evening, if you'd like to approve it. The total cost of the board over the 3 years is just under $30,000. So it's $29,200 over the 3 years. That's comprised of a 2% gross wage increase, GWI, and a step increase of 1.5. The steps were previously at 1.5. That did not increase. So that results in a total GWI plus step of a 3.5%. Additionally to that, we added 2 steps to the end of the pay scale. Originally, they went to 10. We had a couple of nurses who were nearing that, and that was a proposal they made to, we agreed upon two more. We did increase the health insurance premium share only in year 3 by 0.5%. And we did agree to increase the nurse coordinator stipend, was originally 5% of the RN1 salary, and it went to 8% of the RN1 salary. And the HSA health insurance, the deductible, that remained the same. That was not changed at all. There were minor language changes. There were some changes regarding protection of the nurses, some bereavement day language changes, family sick days, personal day, a lot of it just language, and a change in the recall list from 1 year to 2 years. So all over the 3 years, it is the $39,000 cost. And I think that's all I wanted to say.
How many nurses are there, Kim?
We have 5.
So, any other comments? Like to have a motion to approve the nurses contract?
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments on it? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nurses' role next year is probably something they didn't expect when we started the contract. Nurses' role is going to be critical as we into next year's activities.
Kim, I have a question. Is it a 3-year contract?
It is, yes.
Okay. I probably knew that. Thank you.
The next item is the vote for the healthy food certification. Kim?
So that's just to renew our yearly application to participate in the National School Lunch Program. And to do so, we need to make various motions and abide by certain nutrition rules in order to receive our reimbursement rate. So we've done this in the past. This is just another annual adoption, and it needs to be done in 2 motions, one for the food, one for the beverage. They're quite lengthy, but they're actually composed by the state is exactly how they would like it to be done. So if I could have someone make those motions, should you agree?
Somebody can make the motion on food.
Okay,
I-
I'll make the motion, our Board of Education meeting for May 6th. I'd like to make a motion to approve the health food certification for 2020-2021 for food options. It's a motion to move the following healthy food option pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 10-2215F. The Board of Education certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or by non-school organizations and groups.
Have a second?
And
Is there any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Aye.
Lucy, you want to read the second one on beverages?
Second motion for beverage options. It's a motion to allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutritional standards and beverages not listed in section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or a school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is a period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the school day. Location means where the event is being held.
Do I have a second?
second,
Any comments? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
I,
aye,
Thank you very much. Item C is discussion of term of the Board of Education members that are expiring. I've talked to Laura Francis and actually Karen Cheney, the registrar of voters. The plan now is on, I think, June 7th. There'll be a virtual town meeting on Zoom, and they will take nominations for the 3 expiring terms of me, Norm, and Christine, and then any other nominations. If we nominate, we can nominate ourselves or have somebody nominate us if you want to continue, and they'll accept nominations at that meeting for the term of July 1st, 2020 to November, whatever the election day is, 2021. So it'll be 18-month term. So they'll accept nominations. Their plan then is to adjourn the meeting and arrange some kind of balloting and voting on the following day. They've talked about having some kind of drive-through on either at Corn School or at the Cow Palace, down at Durham Fairgrounds, where you would get a check that you were a voter, second that you get a ballot, and then you could pick 3 of any of the people that are on the ballot, and then drop it off at a 3rd station. with very little contact person to person. So that's the kind of the plan that they're talking about. It's not actually worked out in final yet, but that's my understanding of how this is going to work.
Bob, Laura happened to be on the call with the governor and was one of the people who asked a question and did ask if there was going to be further guidance on municipal Board of Education elections. And she was told that more guidance was coming out on this. I know there was a vote in Vernon, which was a drive-by vote. And so there are people who have kind of gotten the idea that because they did it in Vernon, it was okay. It was not okay. They didn't invalidate that vote, but it was, you know, it really wasn't something that the state was saying was okay. But at tonight's call at, like, I don't know, 20 of 6, Laura was told that further guidance was going to be coming from the state. So I'm not sure that that type of a setup is going to be approved by the Board of Health or Department of Health or Health Director. So
Yeah.
I think it remains to be seen.
Right. I think we'll have more information as we get closer to June. So.
We better.
So there's other comments. That's my understanding of where they are today, and we'll find out more, I guess, over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I guess I'm not even involved in this particular election, but I still don't see the position that the town is taking, where they're ignoring the express written component of their town charter and moving forward with something that is different than what the town charter says. I worry about it from the standpoint of, you know, somebody could easily bring up a suit against it to say that this was not a valid process. There's a clear prescriptive way of doing this that's specified in the town charter when the change was supposed to occur. I know that they have gotten their attorney's opinion on that, but honestly, I haven't seen the legal justification for that and why they're now moving away from what the guidance is within the town charter. And I just think it really just needs to be resolved before we move forward in any other way. I mean, the town can do what they want to do, and then other people can make the decisions, but it just doesn't ring true to me about the process that's occurring.
Their town attorney outlined the 3 different processes, including just following the charter, but he indicated that because it's been so many years since that was passed, and then, you know, the charter, the terms were like 6-month extensions, that this, you know, he gave them the option to follow the charter, the option to have a town vote, and the option to have a regular election. And the election would probably have to get approval by the state government and a few other things, and it would leave 3 positions vacant in July. So they chose the one in the middle, that the town would have a town vote and vote for the replacements. So.
I mean, I guess I just don't know enough about town rules and to know that whether a town can, or the Board of Selectmen or other people can go against what's written explicitly within the town charter. Yeah. Because that's ultimately what I'm worried about. I mean, they can say that, oh, things are different, that, you know, it was in 2006 and that this was a, you know, the time change is different, but nothing of that is specified within the town charter. Within the town charter, it explicitly states that if the decision is made to go to an election and format, then this is the plan for instituting those members within that format. And I just don't see how you can then circumnavigate that and say that, oh, we're just not going to pay attention to what the town charter has said, because then that would go for really almost anything else within the town charter. So I'm just bringing this up because I still have a lot of concerns about it.
I don't think you're alone in that, and but this is where we are with the town right now. So, as I said, we'll probably get a lot more detail over the next few weeks. So, all right. The next item is committee report on student achievement. Lucy or Victor, you want to do that?
Lucy, are you ready to go?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Corey went over a few things, but these few things are quite extensive and quite involved because initially when she discussed the distance learning for phase 1, that was initiating this entire process from the ground floor up. And so I'm going to just kind of give you a little bit more detail because you haven't seen any of the minutes. And to let you know that when you do receive the minutes, we ask that, we had talked about this before, that a link be provided on the minutes so that you could click on it and see whatever slides or PowerPoint that she had put out so you could see the documents that went along with the meeting, which would be helpful as well. In phase 1, obviously the transition was made from classroom teaching to distance learning. There was focus on developing and organizing, and the key word here is consistent. You're going to hear it several times. Consistent learning teacher expectations as well as learning student parent expectations. Developing a consistent teaching and learning template. So everybody was, they're trying to keep things as consistent as possible for all the students. There was also comprehensive development of professional learning. Plans were developed with tech teams, coaches for all the teachers, special education, as well as intervention teachers in order to support students with all their learning and with one-on-one and small group instruction. Schedules were developed for teachers and administrators. And what I thought was very interesting, and if I didn't understand this correctly, Kathy, correct me. I believe that in grades K through 6, instead of let's take grade 1, all the first grade teachers each putting together their own math, all the first grade teachers met, and 1 or 2 of those teachers did the math for all of the first grade students. So all the first grade students got the exact same math materials, instruction, and concepts. And they did that with each of the subject areas, which I thought was absolutely incredible. And like I said, consistent was very important in the process. A lot of work was done, obviously, with the IT department to develop the at-home distance learning, pages, distribution of Chromebooks, and also there was a lot of emphasis put on having some consistent communication for parents and for staff. They also, during this part, put together surveys for parents, teacher, staff, and for student surveys. And Kathy alluded to that earlier about the student survey that they just received. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of the survey results, even though when you look at the PowerPoint presentation that Corey put out, you'll see each individual question and responses. But the parent survey was quite interesting. The highest participation rate came from the high school. We had 24.5%. Lyman had 21.7% of the responses. Brewster had 19%, Memorial 18.3%, and Strong was 15.8%. Bear in mind when you see this, that this parent survey result went out about 2 weeks after the start of the whole brand new initiative for distance learning. Also, another interesting piece that came out was the quality of instruction. 41.1% of the responses were excellent and 43% were good. So if you put that together, that's like 84%, a little over 84% of the responses were excellent and good. There were 16 responses that came in the fair range. Corey also highlighted some bright spots that she shared from the teachers, which was very good. And the response she got from the teachers was overwhelmingly very positive. I know I myself was a little concerned because it's a lot of stress, a lot of changes for the staff, for everybody. And I was really curious as to what the results might be. And I was very pleased that the teachers really were very positive about everything. Then they moved on to phase 2, which is still in the process, which is transitioning to the next phase of distance learning, which is, aside from reviewing all the survey results, they're identifying priorities, which would be, in the next phase, live connections with students and teacher instructional videos. They're going to gradually develop the release of the Google Hangout for K-12. They're piloting middle and high school, actually high school first and then middle school for this new initiative, these 2 new initiatives, the live connections and the teacher instructional videos. Again, there's professional development that goes along with this for the staff and also for the tutors and the paraprofessionals. And then they're looking at instituting, I believe, a week at a glance document for parents K-6 to keep the parents informed. Another piece that Corey went over were the grading practices, and I believe we've had some discussions on this before. And the State Board of Ed had suggested that schools adopt a locally guided pass-fail protocol for grading. With regard, Corey broke it down to high school, middle school, and then the elementary schools. With regard to the high school does grading. They look at numbers. So what they tried to do was to incorporate some numbers along with the options. And they had 3 options, which would be pass with distinction, pass, fail, and then they had a 4th option, which was incomplete, to give the students, some students, an opportunity to complete stuff. They reviewed, let me go back to year-long courses. They reviewed Q1 percentages, Q2, obviously they're a higher percentage of the grade because the students were still in school at the time. When you start to get into Q3, that's when we started to have the issue with COVID. So the percentage for the final dropped a little bit. And by the time they had Q4, the final percentage was going to be 10% of the whole grade. I believe what Brian was on at our last meeting, and I think he went over all of this. So maybe I'm kind of being redundant. So I probably don't need to review it. So I don't think I will, because I think he went over all of this, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, does anyone want me to kind of just review it at all, or do you remember from Brian's presentation? You do? Okay. Yeah, I just remembered that he had said, you know, this really sounds familiar. And I said, oh yeah, he'd already talked about it. Sorry. Okay. But, you know, Corey just packed this all in our 1-hour meeting. And I'm telling you, this represents a phenomenal amount of work, not just by Corey, Kathy, the administrators, the staff, and the students, the parents. Everybody's got some kind of an investment in this. And it's just a monumental task that's very well done. Very well done. Victor, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll just remark, excuse me. There we go. I'll just remark, when I came on the board 7 years ago, we had a new acting superintendent who arrived to discover that there was no curriculum, although the school was committed to doing Common Core. And he had teams of teachers who were writing. Well, he arrived before the summer, so he knew we had the summer, writing through the summer, and through the year, they managed to keep 2 months ahead of the delivery of the curriculum. And I thought at the time, wow, this is a scary crisis. And then, of course, we had the change in teacher evaluation, the changes in the state testing system. And I thought, wow, these are big crises. So what's happening now?
Wow.
Overnight, an entire new curriculum has been established. A whole new way of teaching has been established. We have the IT department, shout out to Ken, who's managed to deliver computers to everyone who has asked for it. A heroic effort. Never mind the software issues that he's been involved in. It's an enormous revolution that's happening before our eyes in a remarkably short time. And I don't think we can honor enough the effort that starts with Kath and Corey and goes through the whole staff, the enormous effort to turn on a dime and make something new. Literally, they're flying the plane while they're still designing the wings.
Yeah.
And I honor you all for that.
Amen. Yeah.
Thank you, Victor. I did want to just, I mean, we can talk further about this, but conversations, just because you brought up technology, Ken and I have begun the conversations about, you know, what other platforms are out there. Would there be any merit to making a change? If so, when? What would be the pluses? What would be the minuses? How about technology? We've got in the budget iPads for K and 1 for the classrooms. What if those little ones are learning at home? What device is most developmentally appropriate? What additional devices can enhance the teaching for students? What kind of assistive technology might we need for students if they're learning at home? And of course, conversation for another time. You know, we wouldn't have asked for this, but boy, have we learned a lot, and we will never be the same. Our instruction will be changed forever and for the better once we're back in school. So just a little bit of, after you made the comment about technology.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, Lucy and Victor. I think, Victor, your comments and Lucy's comments are, you know, right on as to what has happened and what we've been able to accomplish. The next item is communications. I have several. We've had communication since the last meeting from Nick Fraiella on, he's asking a number of questions on the budget, and Michelle DeMoro has quite extensive communication on Fieldhouse and other fees and other things. Those are included in the minutes from the last meeting. Also a comment from Heather Parenti on the coursework. Those are included in the minutes from the meetings from the April 22nd. I also have new communications from Maya Liss, who's concerned about the stress on the family and is interested in if we can end the school year sooner. I have the same question, a similar question from Heidi Pizzo, who was asking that maybe that we ought to end up moving the school in earlier this year for some relief from the parents and the teachers. I have a comment from Ken Rizzo, who appears to be someone concerned in Durham about getting kids on the same internet system. And all those letters will be included in this minutes in full, in this week's minutes. I also received comments from virtually all of the administrators thanking you for the gifts from Amazon that Christine organized, and most of them that it was Christine's idea to get those Amazon gift cards out, and the principals and administrators really appreciated it. I don't know if you saw their comments, but I got them all. So that was very good. We also had a number of student-led activities, student-led comments. Maybe Kath, you want to show one of them?
Sure, Bob, do you want to give the little intro on what it is?
Sure.
Bob, can I just ask that you speak up? I really can barely hear you. I don't know if it's the computer or what.
I think that one of the comments we got is we got a update on Tim Fisher's condition and his health that was on Facebook and also sent. And it was a really encouraging update. He's moving out of the hospital into a rehabilitation center, and is really starting to function more fully than he had been in the past. But the students, when he first got injured, Pierce Stefan and the other members of the band wanted to put together a music from one of his favorite composers, and they have done that on Zoom or some other mechanism. And I think Kath has a little bit of that video to show you.
I'm trying. My God. Hang on, people.
In addition, Amy Schaefer's tennis team sent out a nice thank you to all the community volunteers and workers and nurses. I don't know if you saw that online, but that's also up there. It was all the members of the tennis team put together a thank you. Getting close, Kat.
Mhm.
Thank you, Kat. Oh, there it is. Well, if you can't see it, it's on the POP's Facebook page. But it goes in and out for every student playing on their instrument, and it sounds a lot better than it does right now.
I'll second that, Bob. We should all go to the POPs Facebook page and play this. I think partly, Kath, you probably don't use original audio enabled. So that stuff is all getting compressed through a speech algorithm. We're just getting tiny bits of it. Go to the Facebook page. It's a really beautiful thing that they all did together.
Yeah.
I'll send that link to you. I had no idea you weren't seeing it. I was seeing it until Ken just texted me to say that you couldn't see it. I apologize. I thought you were seeing what I was seeing. Story of my life. But I'll send you the link. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the audio also didn't really arrive, which is
Yeah.
what I was talking about, the compression.
Yeah.
You see approximately 30, it looked to me like about that number of players. And Pierce is conducting them. Each one of them is playing alone, and together they make a beautiful piece.
Right.
A remarkable accomplishment and a remarkable act of love.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, if you haven't, you really should see it. It's really amazing. I've also been involved on this weekly meeting from all the Board of Education chairmen every Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock for an hour plus. Their issues are basically the same as ours. There's a lot of focus on how to deal with the graduation. There's a lot of focus on, there was focus on the busing, and that's been probably handled. There's a number of issues related to giving some kind of recognition to the teachers for doing this work and how to handle that. There's a number of budget adoption issues, but virtually all the same as we are having. They're focusing now on getting back to school, just the issues that Kath raised tonight. So there's a lot of communications, there's a lot of documents that are being produced around the country, and we're trying to share the ones that seem to be the most valuable that are coming through. And so I think every other Board of Education is dealing with the same exact issues, and we are in the same place as every one of them. So, any other communications?
I was just gonna wish all the teachers of the district a happy Teacher Appreciation Week.
Yes. It's also Nurse Appreciation Day today as well. So
It is. That's right. I should have known that considering where I work.
yeah,
But yes, happy Nurses Week too. Yeah.
I think it's Physical Therapist Week too.
Right. Please.
I don't think so, but thanks.
Any other comments and communications? If not, we'll be see you on the May 13th, and we'll try to get out instructions ahead of time. And if any of you want to comment on particular questions on that list, I think Meg will send out an updated list probably Monday or Tuesday or maybe Friday, and we can start to look at how we're going to respond to some of those questions. But thank you very much, and I hope
So that meeting is at 6 o'clock?
yes.
Okay.
There's
I just saw that today and I said that I don't think it's ever been at 6, has it?
There's no meeting. It's just going to be the hearing. So
Right, but we have to be on the computer at 6 o'clock.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Victor. A second.
Second.
All in favor? Good night, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hey.